In the 2024 Berkshire Annual Meeting, Warren Buffett made it clear that he did not invest much in real estate, buying 3 houses in his lifetime and selling 2. However, Berkshire owns estate agencies or brokerages. Basically, he understands real estate, but he goes for the higher returns that justify his investment prowess.
What are your thoughts on buying and selling a home in light of this recent settlement? And maybe ask the note to Greg and Ajit too. Would you consider a Berkshire agent when buying your next home?
Well, I don't buy them that often, as some people have noted, but I certainly would consider them. But I'd say the probability of that happening is low. And I really appreciate the fact you've joined up with us. So I've sold 2 houses in the last, the last 93 fraction years, and I've bought one that I still have, but I obviously bought the other 2. And I have not negotiated down the commission, even though the last one sold for $7 million or something like that. People do negotiate down commissions to some extent, but I can tell you, I've looked at the figures, and I think the system has really worked out very well. When I got out of school, they had what they called FSBO, with for sale by owner, and so I've been involved to some degree in watching the whole system operate, and I know what our average agent makes. I know how long they work on things sometimes that don't materialize. I mean, I don't think we'll end up with a better system, and but it's up to Greg and the people at Home Services how we work it through here. But I like our agency group, and we've got a very large number of real estate agents, and I've encouraged the expansion we've done in the real estate brokerage business. It was just 1 or 2 operations when we bought Berkshire Hathaway Energy, and we really built up quite a company, and I think it's a very fundamental business. You need help. 90% of the people need help, in buying a home or selling one, and I've watched it operate all my life and been involved with lots of people who have been in the business.
Real estate is not a commodity, but I think it tends to be more accurately priced most of the time.
It is generally known that Warren Buffett eschews investing in real estate or REITs, at least personally or for Berkshire Hathaway. But does he really discourage that? In the 2002 Berkshire Annual Meeting, he says so clearly. And he says it again at the 2005 Berkshire Annual Meeting. But does Warren Buffett really discourage individuals from investing in real estate? What is the exception? Please watch until the end to find out.
I'm Bob Klein from Los Angeles. I wonder if you could give us a glimpse into your investment process, the way you approach looking at a particular industry. And I wonder if you could use real estate as an example. I know real estate hasn't been a huge part of Berkshire's portfolio over the years, and I wonder if that's because you view real estate as a commodity business, or if maybe the cash flows from real estate tend to be more predictable than perhaps from some other industries, and thus it tends to be less likely to be mispriced and therefore less likely to find terrific bargains in real estate.
So, go ahead.
So just wondering if we could, if we were watching a discussion between you and Charlie hashing out the merits of real estate, how it would go.
Well, it would go like all our other conversations. He would say no for about 15 minutes, and I would gauge by the degree to which the motion he put into his nose whether he really liked the deal or not. But we both had a fair amount of experience in real estate, and Charlie made his early money in real estate. The second point is the more important point. Real estate is not a commodity, but I think it tends to be more accurately priced, particularly developed real estate, more accurately priced most of the time. Now, during the RTC period, when you had huge amounts of transactions and you had an owner that didn't want to be an owner in a very big way and they didn't know what the hell they owned and all of that sort of thing, I mean, you had a lot of mispricing then, and I know a few people in this room that made a lot of money off of that. But under most conditions, it's hard to find real estate that's really mispriced. I mean, when I look at the transactions that REITs engage in currently, and you get a lot of information on that sort of thing, they're very similar, but it's a competitive world, and they all know about what a Class A office building in Chicago or wherever it may be is going to produce. At least they may all be wrong, as it turns out, because of some unusual events, but it's hard to argue with the current conventional wisdom most of the time in the real estate world. But occasionally there have been some, there could be big opportunities in the field, but if they exist, it will certainly be because there'll be a lot of chaos in real estate financing for one reason or another. We've done some real estate financing, and you have to have the money shut off to quite a degree, probably, to get any big mispricing across the board. Charlie?
Yeah, we don't have any competitive advantage over experienced real estate investors in the field, and we wouldn't have if we were operating with our own money as a partnership. And if you operate as a corporation such as ours, which is taxable under Chapter C of the Internal Revenue Code, you've got a whole layer of corporate taxes between the real estate income and the use of the income by the people who own the real estate. So by its nature, real estate tends to be a very lousy investment for people who are taxed under Subchapter C of the code relating to corporations. So the combination of having it generally a lousy activity for people with our tax structure and having no special competence in the field means that we spend almost no time thinking about anything in real estate, and then such real estate as we've actually done, like holding surplus real estate and trying to sell it off, I'd say we have a poor record at.
Yeah, C Corps really it doesn't make any sense. I mean, I know there are C Corps around that are in real estate, but there are other structures that are more attractive. There really aren't other structures. I mean, Lloyd's is an attempt at it to some degree, but there aren't other structures that work well for big insurance companies. I mean, you can't have a Walmart very well that does not exist in a C Corp. So they are not subject to S Corp or partnership competition that determines the returns on capital in the discount store field. But if you're competing with the equivalent of S Corps, REITs, or partnerships or individuals, you've just got an economic disadvantage as a C Corp, which is, for those of you who don't love reading the Internal Revenue Code, is just a standard vanilla corporation that you think of, all of the Dow Jones companies, all of the S&P companies, and so on. And as Charlie says, it's unlikely that the disadvantage of our structure, combined with the competitive nature of people with better structures buying those kinds of assets, will ever lead to anything really interesting. Although I would say that we missed the boat to some extent during the RTC days. I mean, it was a sufficiently inefficient market at that time, and there was a lack of financing that we could have made a lot of money if we had been geared up for it at that time. We actually had a few transactions that were pretty interesting, but nothing that was significant in relation to our total capital.
We thought significantly about buying the Irvine Corporation when it became available. But that's the only big one I can remember that we seriously thought about.
Yeah, that was in 1977 or so.
Way back.
Yeah, Mobil Oil was interested in, Don Brent ended up putting together a group for it. But, that kind of thing could conceivably happen, but it's unlikely.
My name is Hamid Razapour. I'm from Orinda, California. I had a question about real estate. And I know this question was asked in previous shareholder meetings about how come Berkshire doesn't invest in real estate. And I believe the answer was that we like operating business. So I want to make my question a little bit more specific towards commercial real estate. So considering the characteristics of larger size commercial real estate investments like REITs that can have the behavior and financial returns of an operating business, why not invest in real estate? Is it because you just don't like the returns, or the business is just not attractive?
Yeah, well, Charlie got a start in real estate, right, Charlie?
Yeah, I would say number one, that in a corporation like Berkshire that's taxable under subchapter C of the Internal Revenue Code, owning real estate is grossly disadvantaged compared to owning it directly by individuals such as yourself. That's number one. And number two, real estate, investment real estate is having bubble valuation problems of its own right now. All my rich friends who own real estate are selling their worst properties, and they're getting bids that come in higher than their highest expectations, and people are competing to take these things off their hands. I do not find it exciting, and it certainly doesn't fit Berkshire. Name me a lot of C corporations that have been passive holders in real estate and have done well over a whole lot of years. It's almost a null class.
Yeah, Charlie and I mean both, more Charlie than I, we've had certain personal real estate investments over time, and it's a field that in general we understand. We don't bring that much special to the game, but we understand it. We've made money in it. And actually, at the time that the NASDAQ about hit its high, REITs were quite cheap in my view, and I have a less than 1% of my net worth outside of Berkshire, but basically I had that portion all in REITs. They were all small ones at that time, but they were selling at discounts. At that time, they were selling at discounts to the values of properties, and those values of properties were much more conservatively figured than today. Today, you have very fancy prices on real estate, and on top of that, you have the REITs often selling at a premium. So I regard REITs as quite unattractive now, certainly compared to 5 or 6 years ago. But that's a group of securities.
So that's for an individual, you regard them as unattractive.
Yeah.
And for a corporation, that much more so.
Yeah, right. The situation's changed dramatically from 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, the stock market, in many respects, from the 1999-2000 period is down significantly. REITs are up significantly. REITs were very unpopular 5 or 6 years ago. Now they're popular, and it's better to pay attention to something that is being scorned than something that's being championed. And there's really been a big change in the REIT situation in the last 5 or 6 years.
And the REITs have phony accounting.
Otherwise, we love them. Yeah. You don't want to bring up anything in these meetings.
Warren Buffett had sold off McDonald's, a very good investment, which he eventually described as a selling mistake. One of the reasons is McDonald's can also be considered a real estate player, at least a big part of it. Listen to what Warren Buffett has to say on this.
I'd like to ask you what your thought process was when you, or share with us your thoughts when you decided to sell McDonald's a year ago.
That must have been Charlie's idea. I said it was a mistake and to sell it, and it was a mistake, and I just reported that in the interest of candor. And there were some reasons why I thought it was something I didn't think obviously that it was any great short sale or even a great sale, but I didn't think it belonged in the list of 8 or 10 of the businesses, of the very few businesses that we want to own in the world.
In your description of McDonald's, I mean, you have the sense that there's a great business buried in McDonald's and there are two good businesses that are mixed in with it. And the problem is with the real estate and the operational business, that as the company is currently capitalized, they can't earn the same kind of returns they can earn in the franchising business. You were or still are a significant shareholder of McDonald's. I guess my question is, the solution is obvious. Why don't you push for a solution that creates the same opportunity you have at International Dairy Queen?
Well, my guess is, I don't know the details on it, but my guess is that with 23,000 locations all over the world, I think it would be extraordinarily difficult to separate the real estate business out from the franchising business at this point. I think they could have gone a different route. I'm not saying it would have been a better route at all. In fact, I think the odds are they followed the right route in owning and controlling so much real estate. But
I just think the problems would be horrendous. Certainly, you wouldn't want to sell it and lease it back, because you would not end up with more value, in my view, by doing that. And spinning it off in a real estate trust or something, with operating in 100+ countries, and with all of the franchise arrangements, I think it would be a huge problem. I would not want to tackle it myself. So I think that you should look at McDonald's, and I don't know anything about their plans on this, but I think you should look at McDonald's as being a very good business, but the one that will continue in its present mode vis-a-vis the real estate, although I think they've signaled that they're going to do less on new properties, somewhat less in connection with ownership than they've done to this point. But there's 23,000 locations out there, and every operator, his own arrangement is very important to him, and it would be a mammoth job.
I have a friend who says the young man knows the rules and the old man knows the exceptions. At least if he's lived right, he knows them.
If I had a way of buying a couple 100,000 single-family homes and had a way of managing, the management is enormous. It's really a problem because they're one by one. They're not like apartment houses. So, but I would load up on them, and I would take mortgages out at very low rates. But if anybody is thinking about buying homes, 5 years ago they couldn't buy them fast enough because they thought they were going to go up, and now they don't buy them because they think they're going to go down, and interest rates are far lower. It's a way, in effect, to short the dollar, because you can take a 30-year mortgage, and if it turns out your interest rate's too high next week, you refinance lower, and if it turns out it's too low, the other guy's stuck with it for 30 years. So it's a very attractive asset class now.
If you are a young individual investor at home and you have your choice between buying your first home or investing in stocks, where would you tell someone is the better bet?
If I thought I was going to live, if I knew where I was going to want to live the next 5 or 10 years, I would buy a home and I'd finance it with a 30-year mortgage, and it's a terrific deal. And if I was an investor that was a handy type, which I'm not, and I could buy a couple of them at distressed prices, and find renters, I think that's and again take a 30-year mortgage. It's a leveraged way of owning a very cheap asset now, and no, I think that's probably as an attractive an investment as you can make.
And so, does Warren Buffett really discourage individuals from investing in real estate? You be the judge.